Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce you now, who has an awesome name. Casey Krauter is a husband and father of two daughters and has been on the carnivore diet for over 5 years now. Growing up, Casey ate a standard American diet that contributed to a myriad of health issues like chronic headaches, frequent sicknesses, and several skin issues, including terrible cysts in his lymphatic system, horrible dander, blepharitis, I don't even know what that is, and large boils on his back. Through a long nutritional evolution from Whole30 to paleo, and from keto to eventually the carnivore diet, Casey has managed to reverse much of his health issues, including healing his mental health and losing 50 pounds. He practices a holistic approach to health, incorporating ancestral activities as well as a strict animal-based diet. Last year, 2024, Casey trained and completed his first marathon on a zero-carb regimen and achieved his target time with the use of glucose through the training and the race, and is currently training for his next marathon in 2025. Casey now prioritizes an animal-based diet, not just for himself, but also for the rest of his family, contributing to a vital family that is flourishing and coaching others to find the same freedom. You can find Casey on Instagram at carnivore.casey. Casey Krauter, we're an absolute honor to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me so much. Thanks for the awesome intro too. Yeah. Casey's, it's a powerful name.
Exactly. As soon as I saw your name, I'm thinking to myself, like every Casey that I know that does the carnivore diet, they're incredibly intelligent. They're dashingly good looking. They're super funny. They have huge biceps, and they're very, very humble. You know what I mean? Like they're just so humble. So I just had to get you on to confirm
Yes.
if you're listening and not watching that is absolutely the case.
Yes,
So.
I won't confirm or deny that. So
that's awesome.
Maintain my humility if I can.
Yeah, thank you. One thing we're not very good at apparently is sorting out a Zoom meeting. That was so bizarre, dude. I was like inside a Zoom meeting, which I've done a million times since the pandemic, and so have you. And like we couldn't get a link to work, which is very bizarre, but we figured it out.
Yeah. Technology, man.
Yeah, technology, exactly. One other thing before we get to your story, since you're just over the hill from us, we're in Salt Lake City. You are in the Denver, Colorado area. I believe in Longmont, is that correct?
Yep, Longmont, yep.
Please, I never miss an opportunity to let somebody from Colorado say how amazing and beautiful Colorado is, so more people go to your end of the hill and stay away from our end of the hill.
Yeah, I mean, it's gorgeous, especially right now. I mean, it's like, it can be like in the 50s or 60s, but if the sun is shining and you're outside, it's like shirt off, you're absorbing just all those rays, and then just springtime is, I love it. Birds are out, the trees are flourishing, everything is happening. It's my favorite time of year, especially here, and so it's just gorgeous. So
that's
amazing. I love it out here.
That's an amazing spot for sure. I spent some time in Longmont actually for a bike kind of convention that I went to maybe almost 15 years ago, and got to ride around town there. And it's a beautiful area to ride bikes. And yeah, it's just starting to spring up here. It's my favorite time as well. But we've got a snowstorm coming at the time of this recording here in another day or two. So we're still in the series of false springs and false winters and all that stuff. But you'd be very well familiar with that. One thing that's cool about Denver is you will actually get the strange day in like January where it is like 50, 60. Sometimes I'll watch like a Denver Broncos football game and people are in short sleeves. That would never happen in Salt Lake.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy here. Wintertime, it's super hit or miss, especially on like the front range where it kind of flattens out into the plains. We're like kind of right in that pocket right there. And you really never know what to expect. Like this whole week has been in the 70s and up hitting in the 80s, and then Friday it drops down to low 30s and is going to snow again,
Yeah.
And then a couple of years ago we had a big snowstorm in May, so it's like you never really know what to expect.
Well, it sounds like you're getting the tail end of the storm that we get just a little bit earlier than you, which is often the case. But I enjoy that. Awesome, man. Well, you have an amazing story. We talked a little bit about that in the introduction, but can you share with us, what it was like growing up, eating standard American? You made a point in a podcast interview I listened to that I thought was really interesting. Like, you don't blame your parents for, the way that you were eating. And I was thinking to myself, it would almost be you would blame your parents for not doing that unless they were on the cutting edge of nutrition and discovered things that, they were way ahead of their time. If you weren't feeding your kids margarine and low fat and having treats. It would almost be like you were maybe like neglectful for all the information that we were getting back then. I kind of had that passing thought.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, growing up, probably, like most of your listeners and most people in America, I grew up in the early 90s, and it was my family, we ate what was on the shelves in the grocery store. We ate packaged food. We like I wasn't part of a small town, farming community where there were still roots tied into people making their own food. Like literally all the food that I had, I lived in suburbia, Indiana. All the food I had came from a grocery store, came from a package. And bless my mother, she did the best she could. I'm the oldest of 7 kids, so it was like, mac and cheese in massive pots and casseroles, and so she made a lot of food, but it was just it wasn't directed appropriately, and it was all just based on knowledge that we had at the time. And so it the effect of these pseudo foods like margarine and like just sugar. Like I would literally eat powdered sugar from a bowl, just to eat it because it tasted good.
Wow.
And I would lick margarine out of the tub with my finger and just like eat it that way. And I had no idea, obviously, but looking back on my childhood, I had a lot of I had like constant headaches all the time, um, like sore throats all the time. I was sick very frequently, and so the protocol was like antibiotics, and so I was always on like like a Z pack or whatever, the antibiotic protocol, and I got all my shots and all that, and I know that's a really touchy subject. But it all contributed to this kind of this metabolic state that after I sort of woke up to like the reality of the nutrition and that whole piece, it was like, man, like I was in a bad spot, and so like I had pretty hard binging tendencies, and it really contributed to mental health, which then contributed to continued poor nutrition consumption. And so like in college I was eating whole bags of Doritos and Oreo, everything that as a college student you're just binging on all the time. And I went to a college that had like a free dining court where you can eat as much as you want. And so I was just doing that, and by the grace of God, I met my wife, and she kind of opened my eyes to what food does to the body. And so that kind of put me on a path with her that really looking in and discovering that food is actually medicine, and it's really more so about what you're not putting into your body. Or it's both, but really eliminating the toxic foods that I was consuming, the ultra processed stuff. And so we started with a whole 30. That was kind of the gateway into the whole process. And so our evolution kind of started there, and we went into a paleo diet, and we were still finding that the mass amounts of vegetables and fruits that we were eating was still keeping us pretty fatigued and foggy and bloated, and I still had a lot of gastro issues. And so my wife has a functional medicine nursing background, and so in her practice that she worked at, they transitioned people into a ketogenic diet. So I went into that, and that cleared up a lot more of the issues that we were experiencing, that I was experiencing. And so, kind of to touch on some of the things from the intro, yeah, I had really bad skin issues. I had like like welts and boils, like pimples on my back, in my armpits, on my face, and they'd get really big and just they'd be very painful. And then blepharitis, yeah, so it's like dandruff of your what are these called? Eyelash follicles.
Wow.
So it's like it kind of builds up crust on your eyelash follicles, and so and then I had really bad dander. So it just like the tie between like your gut health and what you're consuming and your skin health, it was just so apparent in my life. And so once I started cleaning up what I consumed, it started really resolving. I went through like a huge detox process. So like, I try and coach people on like getting on a carnivore diet and like some of the things that you can start seeing. But like for me, it was like a decade and a half evolution to get where I'm at. And so I like to tread lightly with folks when I'm like, hey, you should do the carnivore diet. And it's like, but I have to like hold myself back because people need to take baby steps and they need to find out for themselves. Because if you just jump into like you're no longer eating processed foods, no sugar, all this stuff, man, it's really difficult to just do a complete 180 like that. And so, yeah, I mean, so that was kind of my journey, sort of leading up to the present moment.
Yeah, wow. It's a very kind of typical progression. I'm sure you see it all the time where somebody becomes aware that the standard American diet is just not working for them. They feel sick, they feel bad. Maybe it's just the weight loss, but they don't realize all the other things they're dealing with are related to diet, like you explained. And there is a progression there, like you said. And so it's good that you encourage that type of progression. I also noticed that many people find that they need to continue getting more and more strict until they get to carnivore. But what was it? Was it still just battling some of those skin and gut issues that made you continue refining and keep going through greater and greater strictness to be able to get to the other end of some of your physical ails?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. So we got on the ketogenic diet, and so it's very much like you're tracking your macros and you're trying to eat high fat, moderate protein, low carb. And so there's certain foods that are kind of in that low carb category, like nuts and seeds, like some dairy, like avocado and low carb veggies. And so, but for me, I'm like, so there's moderators and there's abstainers, and I'm like I can't moderate. Like I'm an all or nothing type person. And so when it came to things like, if I had a little bit of um, like almonds or cashews, I would eat a whole bag. Like I would just go overboard. And so for me and my kind of my mental health and my mental state and my physical state, I just had to take things off the table for myself. And because it kept kind of this, we call it like the sugar dragon. And it's this thing that like you try and defeat this dragon, it's always there until you truly, truly like kill it. And so like nuts and seeds and things like that, um, they just kept me like kind of attached to this sugar dragon, and I couldn't escape. And so that's really what what tipped the scale for me to go full carnivore. Um, but I mean, I knew about carnivore. I saw you interviewed Doc Nally
Yeah, yeah,
recently.
it was cool.
I was like, oh my God, it's a blast from the past because I listened to him and Jimmy Moore when they were
Wow.
doing their podcast, like,
Yeah,
I don't know, is it like 10 years ago now
10,
maybe?
12 years ago, probably. Yeah, they are OGs.
Yeah, and so I remember him talking about like his son doing it or doing carnivore. And I remember like thinking, that is crazy. Why would anybody do that? And or like, can you even do that? And so, you know, after more exposure to it, Sean Baker, Paul Saladino, all those guys, I was like, I need to do this. Like it just makes sense for me to do it. And so I did it for a portion of time from like 2016, 17. And then I went kind of back into a keto, just because that's the way my wife eats and still eats. And so we kind of wanted to be on the same page during a portion of the time. And then it got to a point where I was like, yeah, I need to like go straight again. I need to just, level it out. And what's cool is like my whole family, we've seen, especially like with our kids, because they're so little, and any amount of anything that they consume is going to affect them 10 times faster and heavier than what I'm going to consume. And so, we see it with our daughter, she's 4. If we give her fruit, or if she has some sort of sugar or something like that, it's an immediate shift in just her mental state and her activity level, and she's wild. And so we keep a pretty strict carnivore around here. There's a few low carb veggies that we allow, but for the most part, I mean, we're all eating the same kind of animal based, mostly meat diet. So yeah.
Wow. I'll definitely have some questions about the kids. I love talking to parents about how to manage that. And yeah, I've made the case that I really just don't think the kids are too miserable when they're eating this way. It seems like they thrive and do really, really well. And if they're habituated to it, they can pull it off really well. I'll never remember a time when I was coaching somebody, and we'd been coaching for a little while. She'd already done so much refinement in her diet, but wasn't quite getting to the results she wanted. And we kind of went back and forth, and she was consuming quite a bit of coffee and putting a lot of cream in her coffee. And I'm like, well, there's something, we can maybe address. And she's like, what are you talking about? This is carnivore. It comes from animals. I'm like, yeah, it's like nuts and seeds. It's on one of those short lists of like, if you're going carb and you're not getting the results you want,
Right.
Maybe carbohydrates are sneaking in. Maybe you're having those keto products that aren't as good as you think they are. And dairy is on that list for me. And she just was so exasperated and said, it's not there. This is not there. I've already refined so much of my life. And it's like, first of all, I'm suggesting this. I'm not telling you what to do or not do. This is potentially for your own benefit if you want to try.
Right.
But there is, on the one hand, that kind of feeling of like, I can't have anything anymore. Like, I have to be carnivore until, again, you get to the other side and you realize like, oh, I really was feeling a lot worse than I thought. Whenever I cheat on my diet, my anxiety comes back. And it's just like, I remember this, and it's not very fun, and I don't like it. I would rather be strict and not have to deal with this.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, dairy is one of those things that, well, first off, like when you're coaching other people, and it's like, it's like, is this something you actually want to do? Because you're complaining about this thing that you said you wanted to do, and then it's like, I'm not holding you to anything. Like, I'm just making suggestions, and you should try it or not. And I think a good indicator on whether or not you're still addicted to something, carbs, you know, carbohydrates, glucose in your system, is if you try to cut it out and it unleashes on you these withdrawal symptoms. That's a surefire sign that you're still fighting these carb cravings and you're holding on to something. And that's something that I've seen as you continue in the carnivore journey day to day. It's like the cravings go away every day. It goes down a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. You just have to make the choice to not go there, and it's kind of excruciating each day, but it goes away over time. And that's something that I've seen. Like, my cravings for all those things are just, they're gone. And the other piece is like the emotional piece. Like, that's a huge one that that when you start coaching people, it's like you're not just like a nutrition or a diet and nutrition coach. You're actually like you're like a therapist. You have to help people work through emotions. Yeah, it's because and it's what I fought through and still, like, you get together with family, the way that you were raised, what you ate when you celebrated, what you ate when you were sad, what you ate when you got together with people, is like, holidays, they're still difficult for me and to emotionally walk through, because I'm like, well, we did this so much. Like, I want to do that. I want to feel those same feelings. But I was deceived at the time to think that my feelings of joy and fulfillment with my family, um, that they were for some reason they were tied to food too, you know. And so when you remove that, it's like people have to reassess like what actually makes them happy, and um, and so that's part of the withdrawal symptoms. That's part of the mental pathways in your brain that have to get reconfigured um, when you're going through all this. And it's not an easy process, and it's really hard to do alone. That's what I know.
Yeah, that's a really
Um,
good point. Well, I mentioned the other interview that I've heard you in, and I'm familiar with your story as far as how you started the carnivore diet. It sounds like you kept things very, very simple, which I absolutely love. I don't know if your thinking has evolved in a certain direction on that, but I just want to point something out that I'm sure you've observed in this space. There seems to be these two kind of subsets of people who are carnivore. The subset of people who they go to the grocery store and they buy meat and eggs and they eat meat and eggs and they're fine and they can do it for many years, and if they have to cheat they get back on, and they don't really seem to make a big deal out of things. And there's this other subset that's like getting things measured and worried that their A1C is drifting up a little bit, or the subset numbers in their cholesterol, and like, do I need organ meats, do I need to do grass fed, grass finished? And it gets so complicated and people get so twisted up with all these numbers and minutia and lab tests and all this stuff. I mean, I don't know. What do you think about that, and where have you evolved your thinking from when you first started a carnivore diet?
yeah, I haven't. When I first started in 2020, right after I started, like 3 months after, I got my my labs done. It was part of like some free offering with the company that I was working for at the time. And my cholesterol was crazy, but like, um, it, you know, I don't know. I've heard so much about the lies that have been told to us, um, regarding what your lab levels are. Um, it's of my opinion that if you can do certain things that you couldn't do before, and if you feel a certain way that you didn't feel before, that's like that you feel better, you're getting better sleep, you have more energy, your circulation is better. As a male, if you have, and I'm just gonna go there, if you have a morning erection in the morning, that is a good sign. That is a great sign that your circulation is doing well. So it's like I think that there's so many things that have to do with um, the way that you feel and the way that your body is operating, that you don't need a lab for, and you don't necessarily need to go and get tested for. It's like the reality is when you scale all these inputs, you take them all away, and the only inputs that you have is pure meat and eggs and fat. Um, you're not consuming the toxins that you once did, and so your body has an amazing way to repair itself. Like that's the way it's been built, and so there's a hard detoxification period. But once you're kind of through that, it's like your body wants to repair itself. And so if you're only consuming the things that promote the health in your body, I don't think you have to worry about, what your labs are looking like, as long as you stop consuming the things that are hurting your body. And I think that it's it's pretty well known, the things that are toxic to our bodies now. I thank God for um, just the scientific research, and really what we now know about things like dyes and seed oils and other toxic chemicals that are in foods, and so we know about that. My biggest thing is like, if you're gonna get something, get a whole food, read the label, make sure it has very minimum ingredients, that you can pronounce, that are whole. I literally I don't consume anything that has like more than one or two ingredients included in it. Um, and then, as far as like tracking macros, I think my opinion is, I go by like, okay, your ideal weight. in pounds. So for me, it's like 160. Okay. And so I'm going to eat that many grams of protein or maybe a little bit more per day. And if I'm still hungry, I'm just going to consume fat to satiation. And the fat that I consume is bacon grease and beef tallow. Those are really the only two. I'll do butter, but we don't keep butter in the house. It's expensive, honestly. And we are extremely budget conscious. So, that's another rabbit hole we could go down. But yeah, I mean, my goal is for myself to keep it simple and then to help other people like make it really simple.
Yeah. Well, that kind of thoughtful and intelligent answer is exactly what I expect from a Carnivore Casey. So, of course, you lived up to that. No, I love that approach. Again, I look at somebody like a Dr. Lisa Wiedemann, who's been carnivore for nearly 20 years now, and she just doesn't really calculate that much, and she just kind of eats meat when she's hungry. And
Yeah.
there's maybe things that she's thinking about, but she's also doing cartwheels on the beach every single day. So it's like,
Yeah.
it seems like it's a really healthy thing to go on whatever metrics that you don't know how the metrics are changing from day to day, hour to hour. They could all be changing, like you have no idea. And the application of what we know about those things in the context of carnivore is just completely different. So yeah, I love that. Yeah, love that. Let's talk about your journey. Before we get to the parenting thing, let's talk about your journey into the endurance kind of world. Endurance is how I first found, kind of low carbohydrate carnivore diets. I was working on metabolic carts, and it was a coach, he's in Colorado, who said that he was feeding his athletes where he was feeding them a lot of carbohydrates. Now he was feeding them a lot more fat, and these athletes would start burning fat, and they could get through even Ironman distance. Competition at the highest levels, and they were fine, and they wouldn't need to eat very much. And it was like completely mind blowing back in 2012. And sure enough, I tried it, and it worked, and it was great. So tell us about your journey into more of the endurance world on low carb.
Yeah. So I didn't work out in high school, in college. Like I didn't. I was more of a musical artist type person. And then when I met my wife, I started eating healthier and moving more. And then eventually I transitioned into, or I started doing CrossFit. So I started doing that, building a lot of muscle and really loving that. And I was on carnivore during that time and really building a ton of muscle. And I loved it. And then circumstances kind of changed to where it just wasn't feasible for me to go to a CrossFit gym anymore. So I thought, I'd love to start running. And so I was running a little bit here and there, but I was like I said, I'm the type of person that I need a goal. I need to be kind of extreme about what I do, or else I just half-ass everything, and it's not beneficial for me. And so kind of midsummer last year, I was like, I should train and I should run a marathon. I should just go all out and do it. And so 3 months before the marathon, I signed up for it and I started training. And I was only training for 3 months, from maybe a couple miles a week, to full blown 26 miles. But yeah, I just started running, and I had a makeshift plan that I put together myself. But I found that I found that I could wake up in the morning and I still fasted, and I would I down like a glass of salt water to get my electrolytes up, and I would just go on my run. And sometimes I would go, I go anywhere from like 5 miles to like 16, 17 miles. And I found that it was easy. I wasn't hitting some sort of wall or a bonk or anything like that. And so that's what I did consistently through training. I just would run fasted and then come home and eat just a normal, what I eat every day, even now, breakfast. It wasn't like I wasn't like, oh, I need to like load up now. I wasn't even hardly hungry. And something I heard on a podcast a while ago is like, if you're fat adapted, even if you're like a thin person, you have something like 6,500 calories on your body at all times, and it's like you you're really not going to be using up all of your sources of calories, even if it's on your body, even in a 26-mile race. So, I just kept that in mind, and I just kept running, and so and the people. So I live like just outside of Boulder. It's like a huge running community, like massive. And so I have a handful of friends that are in that running, long distance running space. And when I would talk to them, they're like, "How are you going to fuel? How are you going to fuel? How are you going to fuel?" I'm like, "Zero carb. I'm just eating fat. I fuel by fat. I'm fat fueled. And they're like, "Oh man, that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. You got to rethink that. You got to come up with a plan." And even these people on their training runs, they're hitting goos and all this stuff, and I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show myself and these people that you don't have to. And so, coming up to the race, that was my plan. I'm just going to run it fasted. And what I did do for the race is, I made like 6 little vials of, just like an electrolyte solution. It was like a high concentrate. It So the product is like, it's Relight from Redmond's. It's a kind of electrolyte thing. So flavorless Relight. I just did a heavy concentrate in 6 vials that I shot throughout the race, just to keep my salt level up. The one thing that I will change the next time I do a race is consuming more water during the race. It's so hard to do because they give you these cups where they're like half full, and yeah, so I was pretty dehydrated by the end of the race. But yeah, I ran it really well. I got sub 4 hours, that was my goal. And especially up here in Boulder at elevation and then up and down hills, it's one of the harder marathons, I guess, in the country. And so, yeah, I'm pretty proud of how I did, and no bonk, nothing. Yeah.
For you, man. That's savage. I
Yeah.
absolutely love that. Yeah, and what you said is correct. Like, if you know your body fat percentage, you can multiply your body fat percentage with your weight to calculate your fat mass, and that will tell you how many pounds of fat you have on the body, and then multiply that by 3,500, because there's 1 pound of, I'm sorry, there's 3,500 calories in 1 pound of fat, and that will tell you how much energy you have. And Tour de France athletes have like 30,000, 40,000. Like, you have a lot more than you would ever assume, even people that are ultra lean. So yeah, that's wonderful. And it just occurred to me as you were explaining that you've never run any sort of distance on carbohydrates. You have no idea what it would ever feel like to bonk. You've never gone through that.
No, yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude, I'm so jealous.
Yeah,
my
I mean,
whole
I'm
cycling career was, that's all it was.
yeah, yeah. And I had never had any desire to run, and just switching to a carnivore diet, it was like, okay, I have energy. I can do this. Like, my wife's like, "Casey, you can literally do anything you want. You're so athletic, and you're like, you don't have any aches and pains, and you're on the carnivore diet, and do whatever you want to do. Like, go do ultras now, And so, that might be the next progression. I don't know. I don't want to spend that much time away from family, though.
Yeah, true. It is a big time commitment. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, your gut hurt before. Imagine competing and taking in so much sugar and all the crap that comes with that. It's not just sugar in goo packets. You know what I mean? There's other stuff in there that just is terrible. And you're trying to exercise and digest all of that at the same time. Dude, it was the worst. You felt terrible. And if you didn't stay on top of it, you would bonk. Your energy would just right out from under you,
Yeah.
disappear, and you'd have to limp home. Like, it was terrible. You'd be very grateful you bypassed all of that nonsense.
Nice. Yes. Okay. I'm even happier. Okay.
Dude, that's great. Oh man. Okay, I do want to get back to the parenting thing, because I always find it really interesting. Again, you had the advantage of being already kind of in this space, before you had your kids, if I have my timing down correctly. So how has it been? How has it been going?
Yeah.
Has it been terribly difficult? What challenges have you faced, and how are you approaching this with your kids?
Yeah. So our oldest, she's 4 now, 4.5 says, um, extremely intelligent. I mean, it's scary how smart she is. But she was fully breastfed up till 3.5 years old, which is, kind of unheard of nowadays. Um, and her very first food was liver and sardines, and we would just give her our, ribeye bones to gnaw on when she was just a baby, and so we've kept her. She's never had a piece of candy. She's never had a piece of bread. She's had extremely minimal milk or crappy dairy, um, and so and also like no seed oils. We're just like very strict, and what helps with that is we make everything at home, like everything. We go to one restaurant, and it's just me and my wife that go to that restaurant. And we go get meat products at this restaurant, and so everything my family consumes is at home, and so we heavily rely on uh, eggs, bacon, ground beef, chicken, anything that you can just throw in a cast iron in the oven or on the stove and cook up. Um, she My daughter, she loves it, and she has no desire when she's around friends that are consuming ultra processed stuff. We're like, and so here's the other caveat. We do allow her to have like fruit and berries and some low carb veggies that we're like, um, well, I mean pretty much any veggies, but whole food type stuff, and in very small amounts. So if she ever has an apple, it's only one apple ever, and it's typically not even that. It might be a half an apple or a quarter an apple, um, because we do see even with those when her blood sugar spikes, she kind of gets a little angsty and angry and a little testy, and so we really try and just keep it very animal based for her. Um, and she's thriving. I mean, she started riding a bike at 3 years old. She started walking at 10 months old. She's just amazing, and we contribute it mostly to breastfeeding, but also just keeping her on just a high animal diet, and we feed her tallow fat, we render it ourselves at home, and it keeps costs way down. And yeah, that's just how we live, and she doesn't really know any different, and she's okay with it, you
Can
know.
you even fathom what your life would have been like had you been in her shoes, and like to be able to pay attention in school, to have good energy for whatever sports you wanted to do or playing? Can you even imagine what kind of opportunities she's going to have that were not available to you and I?
Yeah, I mean, I'm we are really strict about it because we're like, she still has a chance. You know what I mean? Like for us, it's like it's already been blown and we're trying to repair at this point. But for her, she still has a fighting chance of having a fully developed frontal cortex, and all these things that when you're a kid, it's just like these are all developing, and you throw all these mass amounts of toxins. I mean, I'm thinking about I drank Mountain Dew and Pepsi multiple cans a day when I was a kid, and it was like I can't even imagine giving my daughter an ounce of that stuff right now. Like literally, I gave her, or I didn't give it to her. She ate a stick of gum that had aspartame in it, and she was mentally loopy for the rest of the evening because of
Wow.
the aspartame. It was like
Wow.
you could see it immediately, and it's like, yeah, I mean, I wish I was raised that way, and like honestly, when I look back on my childhood, it's foggy. I don't even hardly remember a lot of my childhood because I think mentally my body was in fight or flight mode at all time.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. I remember stealing money from my parents. I feel terrible about this, but stealing money from my parents. I knew they had cash in their underwear drawer, and you walk down to the end of the street where the gas station is, and I would just hoard candy. I bought tons and tons and tons of candy and thought it was like the greatest thing ever. Yeah,
Me
that
too.
so amazing.
I
Okay,
mean,
so as
Halloween, yeah, Halloween, Christmas. I mean,
oh,
it was a free for all. My parents did not limit us in any way. It was just they didn't care. You know,
right.
I ate the whole bag of candy that I got on Halloween. You know, like the next day.
Yeah, totally. At least in our defense, like going back that far, at least the food didn't have as many chemicals in it. It actually tasted good. Like candy today doesn't taste the same. It's pretty gross. So at least it tasted good back
Yeah,
then. But
yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I still consumed quite a bit of Skittles, so I don't know.
Oh man. Okay, so as you know, your 4-year old, she's saying she's 4.5. Before long, she's going to be saying she's 16. How
Yeah.
how do you think you're going to be able to continue going down this road as she's getting older and having different experiences through middle school and high school and eventually college? Like,
Yeah.
how are you going to handle that?
That's a good question. I mean, I think our plan is to kind of keep things centered on the family. So our current plan is to start homeschooling and just keep it local for now, and we'll cross that bridge when it comes. I don't know what we're gonna do, but it's gonna be just coaching, and she's even found out the hard way when she has gone to friends' house and eaten certain things and then felt certain ways. And we're like, yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you consume this kind of food. And so she's learning bit by bit, like, hey, this is not good for me. This is not helpful for my body and the way that I want to feel. And so just kind of fostering that kind of approach to food and just everything in life.
Yeah, I love that. It's going to be out of your hands, right? Like you can't
Yeah.
live her life for her and you have to let her go do whatever. But I'm telling you, man, the more parents I talk to, that answer is extremely consistent that the kids, once they get into it, they don't want to get off of it. They are presented food that they shouldn't have and they don't really like it. They don't have the taste for it. It makes them feel unwell. And I
Yep.
don't think it's that big of a struggle for a lot of these kids to continue doing this once they know what the opposite feels like.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. Okay, and I just want to ask before we have to cut it a little bit early. I'd love to have you on for a second episode, and hopefully the Zoom will work another time. But maybe we could do another episode down the road. I don't know if your wife would want to join us as well, but I know she's
Yeah.
into coaching. That might be a really fun discussion between the three of us to get into
Yeah.
your experiences with coaching and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, maybe for today you can just kind of talk a little bit about the coaching that you guys offer and how you work in tandem and what things you are helping people with.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at carnivore.casey. And I'm posting pretty much every day, essentially the food that I eat. It's like, hey, it can be this easy, see? And then I'm offering kind of I do have like a guide that I offer out, and it's just like how do you begin carnivore, and I try to make it really easy and really simple and budget friendly. And then we do coaching, and so I mainly send people to my wife because she's just really good at engaging what people's needs are, where they're at, and how to move forward. And she also is really good at holding people accountable to what they want to do and how they want to do it. And so um, she'll help kind of craft, a daily routine so that you can accomplish the goals that you have in mind. And we always say like carnivore isn't like the end result. It's like a tool to get you to freedom, and feeling your best. And so the way that I approach it is like we've been saying, like keep it as simple as you can, and make it so you can succeed and be successful in it and not get overwhelmed and then eventually fail. Like take some baby steps and sort of chip away at getting to where you want to be. And so, yeah, that's kind of our approach.
It's awesome. It's a great approach, and the guide looks amazing, by the way. It's nice you put that together and that you're helping people. When I got into carnivore coaching, I could see that there were already so many coaches out there, and I was like, well, how am I going to be able to have a business if all these other amazing people are all doing coaching? But there's a demand. Like, there's people that need to know about this, and every coach has a different flavor, and the way the two of you approach things differently is different than other people. So I know that will be really a successful endeavor, and it's cool that you're offering that for your people. So yeah, really respect that. That's awesome.
Yeah, doing carnivore coaching and like helping people is not my day job. I have a regular job, and but like I like to help people. I like to see people go from hurting, unhealthy, poor metabolism to thriving. And if I can help you take any amount of steps to get there, like that's what I love. And I love to hear those success stories. So one of the things I ask anybody who like reaches out to me on Instagram is like, hey, like, are you why are you interested in carnivore, and what's your story? Like that, I think so many people don't have the opportunity to even think about their story, let alone somebody else asking about it. So yeah, that's what I like to do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. As much as I love interviewing, the Sean Bakers and the Dr. Chaffees and all the experts, Chris Palmer and Dr. Georgia Eid, all these wonderful people in the space who are doing amazing research work and putting a lot out there. I also love capturing, the people that are out there doing amazing work like yourself and really making an impact in any which way. And you have all the experience from your lived experience that really will help people as well. So I really, like I said, very much appreciate that. This has been an awesome conversation. Of course, I expected that from another Carnivore Casey, but as of now, like I said, I'd love to do a second episode sometime in the future. I think that would be really fun. But for now,
we'll get my wife on. Yeah,
that would be super fun. Yeah, I think that would be fun, the three of us.
She is a podcast junkie, and so her knowledge base is just
awesome.
It would blow anybody's mind. So
that's amazing.
Yeah,
we'll definitely have to do that. Now, remind us one more time where people can go to find you and connect with you and your work, and you can also say the links of your wife as well.
Yeah, so you can find me at carnivore.casey on Instagram. That's really the only social media platform that I use right now. I tried to get a YouTube thing going, and that's flatlined. Just because I don't have the time to put into it, really.
It's so much work, dude. It is so much work.
Or you can email me at carnivorecasey1@gmail.com.
Perfect. We will link those in the show notes. Yeah, I'm so minimal on YouTube, and even then, it's a lot of work and it takes a long time to build an audience. So, I don't blame you for just sticking with one. And your page looks really good. Your profile, on Instagram looks really good. So we'll be sure to link that. For now, Casey, thank you so very much for all of your amazing experience, and thank you for taking time out of your busy day to come onto our show today and share your knowledge. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you just digging in and getting the information out. It's awesome.
Man, it was so much fun. It was great to connect. Yep. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.